Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm the host, Jennifer Campbell, and I have Anastasia Arauz on today. And I butchered her name, so I think I did pretty well. How are you today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a really fascinating conversation, which I love. I want you to jump in and share your journey of becoming a parent.
Yeah, of course. So, my career came way before I became a parent. I didn't become a parent till I was 39. And so,
AMA.
yeah,
You were advanced maternal age. Okay.
I was
I hate
definitely.
that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it was an accident how I got pregnant. Yeah. So was a teacher, a school counselor, I was a therapist, and then I met my husband and we connected, and then we weren't married actually. And I ended up getting pregnant at 39, which was crazy. I was shocked, but we both were very shocked, but then it's been a blessing. It's been an amazing experience, and it was meant to be. It definitely was meant to be. And I think God had a plan because I spent years before that just in my career, always hoping to meet someone, have children, and I never pushed it. I just knew it was meant to be, it would happen. And so it was wonderful. I feel very lucky that it's all transpired this way.
I mean, what a blessing. So you don't have all these stories of dating sites and swiping left and all these things, swiping right. Is that what you have to do? I don't know. You were just hoping that you would really meet somebody. It's hard to meet somebody.
It is. Well, no, I was hoping, but then also doing all the things, right? So
Okay,
it was
okay,
before, yeah, so it was before the swiping, but
okay.
it was during the Match.com, eHarmony, that era. And so
Yes.
Um, I was actually engaged. We broke up, and then during a big 2-year period, I went on this like cycle of through those apps and through the websites. And then what really happened was that we met through there was a company, and it might still be around. It was called It's Just Lunch. And
Oh,
it was if you
yes.
flew in the airplane and you saw the ad.
I remember I remember this, and I remember it was trying to make it like less stressful and less of a big deal. I thought it was a really good model. I never used it, but I thought it was a great model.
It was interesting. So I was flying home. I'm from Florida and I live in North Carolina, and I saw it in the magazine and I'm like, I'm gonna try this because I had tried the other things and nothing was really working. And I went on about 3 dates with them and my husband.
Oh my
And so
gosh, I love that. Okay.
yeah, so it's through a matchmaker. And so what's cool about it is like you don't know who the person is, you don't give them any of your information, you just meet. And prior to all this happening, they came and do this interview and took pictures and kind of matched you based on what they thought. And so at the end of the date, the person can ask you if they can have your number. And so you have a choice in that. And so it worked out.
That's really fun. Was it ever nerve-wracking meeting? Did you have a picture? Did you know anything?
No, I knew nothing about
Oh,
him.
wow.
So we just meet at a restaurant and I can't really remember. I just know we meet at restaurants and maybe they told you what he was wearing or something. And then
Okay.
something like that. I can't remember exactly because that was 12 years, 13 years ago now about.
Yeah. How
So
fun.
yeah, it's a good story.
I remember my daughter and a mutual friend of ours were fixing me up over 11 years ago with people, and one guy, so they would meet with him and decide if he was worthwhile me meeting, and then I'd get the phone number, right, and text. And one guy, I was like, "Hey, I don't even know what you look like. Can you send me a picture?" And he's like, "Don't worry, I know what you look like." I'm like, "Dude, I will never meet you in this Starbucks." I'm like, there's no way this is happening. So I would have had to really switch gears to, I mean, I guess it's if it's mutual, that's a lot less creepy and someone else is setting it up. But yeah, in my situation, I was like, I'm absolutely not meeting you. I love
I-
it.
yeah.
So it went well, obviously. You exchanged information and met, and that was
Yeah.
great. Was he a little older too?
No, what's interesting is we were exactly the same age. And so he was married before and he had 2 kids. And at the time they were 5 and 7. And so,
Okay.
one of the interesting things that I had told the people was I did not want to meet people with children, only because I had been in the world of children for so long. I'd been teaching, and I was like, I want to start fresh. And so it was kind of on me because he told me it's not like he lied and said he didn't have kids. And I could have not given him my number, but I did. And it's all worked out. And but it's funny because I did say, please, I don't want anyone with kids. And he did have two children, but we're the same age, which has been great because we've hit a lot of milestone birthdays and things
Yeah.
together. So
So
it's
I
been
didn't want anybody that I wanted somebody with kids because I had kids, but my
okay.
youngest was 12. And I didn't want anyone younger than my youngest. And Dane had a 4-year-old. And I was like, why am I even doing this? This is stupid. There's an 8-year gap. And here we are, 11 years later, still, man, we just get looped in on these things. Anyway,
Me too. I know. I feel the same way.
I love this. I love this parallel. Okay, so you guys met, he had two kids. So what was it like to have not have kids? I get why you didn't want someone with kids. That I didn't want to date people that didn't have kids because I felt like they couldn't
Right.
understand me. You'd worked though. You'd work as a therapist, a school counselor. You're working with kids all the time. So you weren't coming in this blind. But being a stepmom, a step parent, and jumping into that with an ex-wife, because
Mhm.
that's hard too. I'm a blended mom, so that's really challenging. How did that all go for you? What was that transition like?
It was different. So my husband's from, this is going to get kind of wacky. My husband's from
Yeah.
Panama. And so
Okay.
the boys lived in Panama with their mom. And so they would come back. Um, the way the judge did it, because they got divorced in the United States. And so the way the judge did it was kind of like my husband would see them on holidays. They came during their break, like their big summer break. And so it was a little complicated initially, um, only because there was some parental alienation stuff going on,
Yeah.
but managed over the years. And we've all definitely co-parented together and really worked through because we've done a lot. Because the boys, actually, the middle son, he is 19, lives with us now. The
Mm,
oldest came to move in with us when he was 14. So we've had a lot of like just people living in and out and having to work together as step
yeah.
parents and parents. And it can get complicated, and it's
Yes.
taught me a lot, honestly. It's taught me a lot.
I agree. I feel like as a step parent, I didn't want to take on really the parent role because they had one. You have a mom already. You don't need another mom.
Mhm.
So where does that leave me? And one of my boys said, I thought of you like one of my favorite teachers. And that was how I navigated having because they were like 13, 15, and 17, the older three when we met, and my kids were older too. So it made it kind of, I guess, easier that we had older kids. But when he said that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great way to think of me, like just one of the teachers you really like, because I'm still an adult that you respect and that
Mhm.
you like, but you're not plugging me into a parenting role. And I think if I could give step parents advice, like go for that type of relationship. Stop trying to force a weird pseudo parenting. It's never going to work. It's just never going to work. They don't need one. They don't want one.
Mhm.
So it's taught me a lot too, patience and like taking the back seat, which I'm not necessarily, I don't know if you were good at that, but working with kids and having kids, it was hard for me to take a back seat to someone else and just kind of be like hands off. That was challenging for me.
Yeah, it was challenging because I had worked with kids for so long, like I felt like I knew it, right? It was my
Yeah.
way. I know what to do.
Yes.
And so it's definitely helped me with my ego, right? Because it's
Hmm.
like it's not all about me. And so I really had to just learn to take a backseat, just like you. I had to learn to listen and be blended as a family. And it's not my decision, it's all of our decisions. So it's been
Yeah.
challenging.
I think also in blended parenting, if you actually ask the kids for what they want, that's helpful too. They really do have an idea. They may be young enough to not understand long-term repercussions or that it's an unrealistic expectation, but at least you have some place to start. Like this is actually what they want, and you are
Mhm.
over here, and that's causes friction. So if you know what they want and you can maneuver from that place, like, okay, well, that is an unrealistic expectation, but let's work within that. I think that can make it easier too, but man, it's hard. It's just hard. I'm sorry, it's hard. Yeah.
It is hard. It's hard for everybody. Yes. And so I have a lot more empathy now for people that are in that kind of a relationship that I did not
Yeah.
have before. A lot less judgment.
Now, did you expect to just not be able to have kids? Were you just winging it? Like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because a surprise pregnancy means like sex is happening, but there's a lack of birth control or a failure of birth control, or like you'd never been in the position where you were trying or not trying prior to that, correct?
Right. No, and I had been on birth control and we were trying not to. So I think I was on birth control, but I wasn't great at probably maybe taking it when I should have. Something was amiss. And we
Okay.
tried, yeah, and we tried like natural ways of not me getting not pregnant. Um But then I did. I mean, we say it was a miracle because really, because both of us were older, I had never, it was just, I had never tried to get pregnant, never not tried. It happened so quickly. And it was a very easy pregnancy. Um, it wasn't a hard pregnancy. Towards the end, the birth was hard. The birth was tough, but
Yeah.
the other parts of it were good.
What was it like with the blended family moving forward? They were like 7 and 9, you said?
And they were about the same age because we dated a year, and so they were 8 and 10 when he
Right.
was born.
Because
Or they were 7. Yeah.
that can cause, and I don't want to, friction's not the right word, but feelings of being left out, of not being loved as much, like now dad with the new wife with the new baby. How was that? How was it now? I mean, I'm sure you were excited. And anybody that uses rhythm or pull out or any natural, they're all called parents. Like in my mind,
Yeah, that's
they're
a
all called parents. Not 100% of the time, but yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you guys were so excited and blessed. But then, how did that change the dynamic? Because you have kids that aren't coming back and forth week on, week off, like standard
yeah.
traditional. How is that to navigate with the boys?
It was good. So we ended up getting married when I was pregnant. And so what was challenging was that his family's all from Panama and they're very Catholic and religious. And so that was a big piece of the puzzle too, of letting them know this has happened. We were getting married, not in a church. So we tried to involve the boys from the very beginning.
Good.
Once we found out, we they were here. So the way Panama is, their break for their summer break is January to March. And so during
Oh,
that time was whenever I got my ultrasound and all that. So they came with us for that. They were there when
oh,
we picked the names. They were there at the wedding. In the wedding, like we made a really big deal about he was with us because I was pretty pregnant at the time. And so we were just talking about him from the beginning. And what's really interesting is we've had a tough time like with Jose's ex-wife and me. I mean, it's been challenging, but I will say her family has been amazing about my son through all of this. It's been really
really?
fascinating. Yes. And the two boys love him. I mean, we don't really say stepbrother, any of that. I mean, it's their
Right. We
brother.
didn't either. Yeah.
Yeah. And to the point where like we'll be in Panama and he's gone with like his brothers and their mom. And
Yeah.
when he was really little, he would call her his stepmom. And I'm like, sure. So it's been great.
Yes.
It's been a good experience in regards to like it could have gone bad, but I think because we were
Yeah.
so proactive in getting the boys so connected with him, and I was really big in because of my background, I was
Yes.
so into like just from the very start, just really integrating it and the attachment and all of that. So yeah, it's been great. That part's been wonderful.
The timing too, because if they were there from January to March and you happen to get pregnant and they, like the timing was incredible
Mhm.
too, because they were there when they could be the most involved. Were they there when he was born?
They were not there when he was born, but they ended up coming.
Percent.
His dad, they flew him down a couple weeks later. And it was funny
Oh,
because I think it was like 3 weeks. And the only reason I remember it was 2 weeks after he was born. And the reason I remember is we threw like a little 2 week birthday party to get them excited. And I have like the cutest video of singing happy 2 weeks to this like tiny little
oh,
infant baby. Um, so yeah, they've been there since the start, really.
oh my gosh. But I mean, the timing was great and you were doing all the right things to make them feel included. And I get it. If I had had I mean, I always hoped with my ex-husband, I told him one time, I hope you marry somebody that I love, that loves our kids as much as I do, that wants to be involved in their life, that where we can do, and he never ended up remarrying. And the two times he got close, it was not that situation at all. But I would have been thrilled to have another woman who I could have called and said, "Hey, I'm running into this." And just feel that comfortable. So I love that even though there was friction in the situation outside of that, like, yeah, it's your son's stepmom. Sure, it's like your brother's uncles, nephews, roommates, cousins. Like that makes us absolutely nothing, that whole line. I think that was from Spaceballs or Princess Bride or something that I'm inadvertently quoting. But it's one of those things because yeah, that's what you want. You want to feel so comfortable that you can send your son with him.
Yeah,
I love that. That's really shows a lot of grace for each other and acceptance. So that I'm thrilled. So you were a therapist, you were a school counselor, you're working with kids, then you have a baby. Did you take time off? What did that look like? And I want to talk about how much it changed your did it change your job having a child of your own? Because that can switch the lens a lot.
it does. And it was fascinating because I was really good at my job before. And I'm not just saying, I mean, I just knew how many people I helped and how great I
Yeah.
was at connecting with kids and parents. And then once I had my own child, wow, it changed how I see things like so much. I feel like I'm so much better now because it's the judgment. I feel like I was judgy. I was very judgy of like my child would never do that whole thing of like that people say. So yes, it definitely changed me. Initially, once I had the baby, I was gonna go back because that's all I knew was working because that's all I'd ever done. And
Right.
I was at a school and I told them that once I had the baby, because I had him in May, I'll come back in August. And then
Okay.
I remember her calling me and I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I just couldn't do it. I
Oh, I
realized
love
that
that.
I needed to stay home. And so I did stay home with him and now I kind of still am. I mean, I've been in and out of working, but I've never gone back full time since I've had him, and he is 11 now.
Right. Oh, wow. Okay. And you know what? I think it's an inadvertent judginess. And I don't think it's just you that's judgy. And maybe I would like to say like in denial. And the reason I say that is because you think about how many kids get a phone call from the school counselor or the principal saying, your kid did this on the bus. And the parent's like, my child would never. And they're like, look, your child is one child at home and one child
Mhm.
on the bus and one child on the playground and absolutely did do this. And I think we all have this sense of like disillusioned denial about our kids because when we take them places like, right, I have a daughter who turned 15 yesterday, and she is like one of the sweetest, most caring, most helpful kids in someone else's house,
Yeah.
not necessarily mine. And so I think we just have this like disillusioned state of like what our kids have the ability to do that we just can't imagine. And from your perspective, from the opposite perspective, thinking like my kids would never do that, or where's your parenting and why are you this? And then we're all wrong. We're all wrong. Kids
We
are
are. Yeah.
totally capable.
Yeah. I would
Yeah.
never say that. And I think I love that. Not judgy, it was denial. I just didn't know any different because you think you know. And so I love that. I'm going to say that from now on. Denial. I was in
Yeah.
denial.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's not even that you're passing judgment, it's that we really, like, I really don't believe my kids would act that way on the bus. I can't
Yeah.
imagine because I'll beat the crap out of them. Like, instantly, I'm like, oh, he will get it a second time at home. And I remember my ex-husband's dad used to say, if you get in trouble at school, you better take care of it because once I get home, you're going to get beat twice and not like physically beat. That's not what I mean, but
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
you're going to get another consequence. You have your consequence at school, you're going to get a consequence at home. And so it's that same theory that, we can't imagine our kids doing this because they know how much trouble they'd get in at home if they ever got caught doing that. And yet they don't care. So
I
it
don't.
did change your career a lot because you didn't go back to that.
Right. I never went back to the schools full time ever. I stayed home with him pretty much full time until he was 4. He went to
Hmm.
Montessori and
Okay.
he went part-time, and then he was full-time. He wanted to be full-time. And so when he was 4 or 5, he started full-time. And that's when I decided, I think I'm going to go try something else. So then I ended up opening a private practice doing therapy with kids.
Oh,
And
wow.
so,
Okay.
and I did that part-time for about 4 years, and worked with families and just did that. And so I'd have the mornings and I would just work a chunk in the afternoon, and I would have him at home again.
Wow. What a great balance. And yeah, so you switched to something totally different. How did he's 11. How did COVID change things at all for you?
Yeah, that was huge. That's such a great
Okay.
question. So I had my private practice. Um, and so what was interesting, we had COVID wasn't like awful for us. It really wasn't. Like everybody talks about how bad it was. But Isaac was at a Montessori school, and so it was
Hmm.
private. It wasn't part of the public school system. He was in first grade. And so they did everything virtual like everybody else, but then they started doing days back.
Oh,
And
good.
so what happened was I had to close my practice at the time because we weren't seeing kids in the practice, all the germs, we were all going to get COVID. And so that's when all of the telehealth started. And
I
so people
know.
were calling me and being like, "Can you see my kid?" And I'm like, "He's 4. I don't care. Will you just sit with him for an hour on the Zoom?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
sure, why not? And so insurance was still, I was still doing the insurance and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working. My husband is a dentist.
Okay.
He couldn't work at all. And so he ended up kind of taking over the
Mm.
education piece for Isaac. And I ended up working pretty much those few months that nobody could really leave full time. I mean, I was working every day full time during that. And then I realized, wow, this is great. Like, I love doing the Zoom. I like doing in person, but I love doing these virtual. I can see people everywhere. I can see multiple people. I can
Yep.
bring people. So that's really how it changed my career, is that I could see how it could look different than just in my office.
I loved that part of it. I think it was great. I was hoping that's what you were going to say because
Yeah.
I feel like also overhead for people that are small businesses or want part-time because they're parents or insert reason here. Basically, it opened up the ability to do a lot more with a lot less overhead. And I thought, so many of these offices don't need to be full.
Yep.
And I look at other job situations. I've been virtual for 10 years now, and I cannot imagine going into an office or a cubicle and not like I'm in sweatpants and I have laundry running right now. Like I just love it. You can pet your dog and, you know,
Yeah.
do your thing. So I love that it changed that. And telehealth, even though I was online, I wasn't doing therapy with a child. That's very specific. And you'd think it would be a lot harder on Zoom, but I'm so glad you figured out a way to really interact and it could
Yeah.
expand things.
And it was hard. Initially, I'm like, what do you do with like a 3 or 4 year old? Because I see kids, I'm a play therapist. And
Yeah.
so I would see kids from 3 to like 18. I mean, I would see the whole range. But my little ones, I'm like, how am I going to sit with a 3 year old? But it was really cool that like I guess the community of therapists got together and everybody just started really coming up with cool ideas to work with kids.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I mean, I find so many amazing things people have created um, with the online sector. So it was fun. It was challenging, and it was hard and not always easy with the little ones, but the kids liked it because it was a break in their day too, because they were all home, and so they enjoyed coming together
Yeah.
and seeing someone different. So yeah, it worked out
How
well.
did you segue, or maybe this is so much easier than I'm making it, probably like pronouncing your name. I'm just making it more complicated. How did you segue into the website you have now, or are you still doing the play therapy? Oh, yeah, you are. Well, no. Tell me.
Mm-mm. No, no, no. So I ended up once, okay, so then I guess in 2022, I still continued my practice after, but I just really got burnt out being in my office. I loved being home, just exactly like you were saying. Like I love just being home, being able to come and go. So what I do now is I really work with a lot of moms. I work with moms virtually. I do see kids virtually. I don't really do play therapy, but I'm teaching a lot about what play therapy is. I do a lot of education around it.
Okay.
I do teach parents like the parenting part of play therapy, which is called filial therapy. So I do teach that to parents so they're able to do it. If a family wants me to come into their home, I will do that. I will go into homes and see families. And then I work in school. I consult in schools. So I do a lot of different things in regards to like social skills group or see kids individually in private schools in the area that don't
Okay.
have a school counselor. So I kind of gone back to that a little bit, but that's
Okay.
very, very part-time. But yeah, so it looks so different now than it used to be, but I like it. I like the different aspects of seeing the different facets of the family.
Do you still do EMDR? Because I find that so fascinating. So
Yeah.
fascinating.
Love EMDR. Yeah. Yeah, I just got trained. That's pretty new. I got trained in that like I think even after I closed my practice. I mean, I wasn't trained in that initially. That the reason I ended up getting trained is because it helped me so much. I saw a therapist doing that or saw a therapist, and then I wanted to learn how to do it. And it's remarkable. I love
Yeah.
EMDR. Anything with the body to regulate the nervous system and to ground
Yep.
it. I think that's where therapy will end up going, actually.
I hope so. I mean, I got trained as an NLP practitioner, which I don't do anymore, but the most
Okay.
beneficial part of getting trained is that to do your training, you have to be the client.
Hmm.
And it's the same, I mean, it's a similar theory. I think EMDR is much more in depth or can be, but it's not talking about it for 6 years and the problem
Right.
never going away. It's eliminating that and working with your central nervous system to kind of, yeah, it's just a very opposite way of thinking, but I think it's so much more beneficial because I've had talk therapy that has been successful. I think play therapy is so different. So I love that too, but I just think there are faster, easier ways to get through trauma than talking about it personally. So I love that you do that. That's amazing. Um, yeah, I think it's fascinating too how much our central nervous system responds and reacts, and that if we can just deal with that, the chiropractor I see works predominantly with your central nervous system. I
Yeah.
mean, you can really do it in a variety of ways that your body can release a lot. Anyway, I love that. So you've
Yeah.
gone from being a therapist and a school counselor for kids and then working with kids to now working with moms. And I love that. I used to work with moms as a birth worker and lactation consultant, and then I went into foster care and worked nonprofit working with the kids, and then I went back to working with parents and fulfilling in very different ways. So talk to me
Mhm.
about that because I mean, I think you're hitting the source more.
That was the thing for me as I was getting to the point where it was like the kids were in the office with me and I'm like seeing all the things that are happening and I'm telling the parents, but then they're not changing that, or it's not even like they didn't want to change what was happening at home. They didn't know how to necessarily. So the same things were happening at home and the same dynamics. So right now I'm really trying to help families. I explain it in a systematic way, like changing the system of the family. What's happening in the system that is causing this child to not be regulated? And so I look at attachment from when they were like pregnancy to 5.
Yeah.
We look at just education, like their IQ, what's happening in regards to how they process information. Do we need to go that route? Do we have addiction in the family at all? Is there abuse in the family? Like what is causing the child? I think of the guy that used to, the dog whisperer. There's nothing wrong with the dog. It's usually the adults,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my
The
gosh.
people.
That's such a great, that is such
So
a great example.
this person comes to the universe, right? For the is born, and so they're here, and there's nothing wrong with them. And so then all these behaviors start happening. Why are they happening? So I really try to get to the root of what is going on. And not that the parents, and I always try to say this too, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just you don't know any different.
Right.
You didn't know better. That's how you were raised. The way people raise children now is so different than the way I was raised.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
complete
for sure.
in the way we do things. And it's not even like the kids would respond the way my mom raised me. Like my son would look at me, it would never work the way my mom raised me and the way I raised him.
Right.
It's so different. And so I really try to help parents and moms see how to do the parenting different and where it's going wrong in a way and how they can fix it.
I think generational trauma has this like heaviness to it, right? But I love this example where Husband asks his wife, "Why do you cut the edge off the roast when you cook it?" And she's like, "It tastes better. My mom did it." And it's
Yeah.
driving him crazy. So he asks the mom, "Why do you cut the end off the roast?" And she's like, "Well, it's the way you do it. It tastes better. My mom did it." And he goes to the grandma and he's like, "Why did you do this?" And she said, "The ovens we had in the 50s were smaller and it wouldn't fit."
Isn't that funny?
That
Yeah,
is
it's
like
so
the best example of generational trauma. It's
that
not
one.
like this big, bad, terrible thing that you're doing. It's unconscious things you don't realize you're doing that you're passing down without even realizing you're passing down because we just kind of do them. And like, who cares? The roast gets cooked. But if you really want to get back to it, it's the same thing with like, take my dog and fix him. And every good trainer will say, you have to come to the class because you're the one that broke him. Like, or even if it's a foster dog from SPCA that you get that comes with habits, what do I need to do to interrupt the habits? Because I'm probably just making the whole situation worse by my reacting. And so
Mhm.
it's a lot of that. I mean, yes, with foster kids and stuff, it's like we talked about the blended family. You have to step outside of it and not do it the way you think it's going to look. You have to be a little more out of the box. So you're basically doing that now with parents, which is huge because that has such a ripple effect on the kids.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping for because I feel like if we can help the parents, then the kids aren't going to grow up with the same traumas or the issues that their parents had. And we're
Right.
stopping it. And so that's really my goal is to really help kids grow up in a healthy family, in a healthy, mentally healthy family in the best way possible.
So
And
now you do
yeah.
coaching and mindset and personal growth and gentle parenting. So I know people can do a free clarity call with you. So what does it look like to go through your process to work with you? And I'm guessing it doesn't have to be in your hometown. You do it virtually.
Yep, I do it virtually. So I have a group that I do with moms. So that's one way. So you can just do the group. We have a group of moms that get together and we just talk about things going on. We share information, ideas. I do a little mini teaching sometimes. Individual work with me. Like I have some families that do the group, the individual, and then there's a module program. I have a 6 module course. And so you can do the whole package or you can do bits and pieces of what would ever work for your family. Depending what it is, I will recommend various ways to do it. And then yes, some people will have I've driven to someone's house before here, like a couple hours away, but I've never really gone further than that. But I
Mm,
definitely can do things in the home as well, if it's somewhere close or how we could work it out. Um, but yeah, I really do feel like if doing the whole comprehensive piece, if you're really trying to change some behaviors in your home, doing the whole thing is probably best.
okay.
But yeah, the call that we would do initially kind of would we would figure out what would work best for you and your
Right.
family.
Yeah. So you can cater it differently to different situations and meet people where they're at more.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
love that. I love your experience. This is so fun. This was fun chatting with you. I really love it. And I love what you're doing and trying to halt things and how much it's changed over time. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. No, it's been great. And I loved this conversation. It was really fun. It's different than what I usually do, so I've absolutely loved it.
Good.